Hello everyone. Uh, Today I'm going to talk about embodied cognition. I hope the material I have sent you might have gone through it. But in this video, my aim is to simply give you in a very simple way what is embodied cognition. So first of all, we should know what is cognition. Now, to give you an example, right now, if you are listening to my voice, you are cognizing it as my voice. So you understand that this is the voice of a person that you know, and he is your teacher, and X is his name, and he looks like this, and all sorts of information comes to your mind immediately after listening to this voice. So, in recognizing my voice, you are basically filtering it out from so many samples and memories of the voice recording, sort of that you already have stored in your head, and you can filter it out and label it uniquely as Dr. Madhumangal Chaturvedi's voice. Just to give you even a better example would be of face recognition. That how are we able to recognize so many faces and so fast? And not only that, we are able to remember their names or name them, and also we can remember everything, all the information, background information associated with them, that the face belongs to X persons, or name or label of that face that we give is X, and X is in male and X is female, X is student of first semester, second semester, X is good, bad, everything, all the information comes to mind. So how are we able to do that? This is cognition. And if you are asked to describe someone's face, you might as well be able to do it using your language. So that's another ability. How do we get words to describe that? How do we learn that, and how we are able to use the rich lexicon? How do we access that? How we come up with grammatically correct sentences? How do we understand a concept? For instance, when I'm saying computer, you understand what a computer is. How do you do that? So the paradigm as far as the cognition is concerned, and which we have seen so far, is just the opposite of embodied cognition. Now, what we can contrast embodied is with disembodied. Now, the theories which propose that mind is a computational representational system, they treat mind as something which can exist independent of the body, just like Descartes did. On the other hand, the embodied mind theories would say, of embodied mind or embodied cognition theorists would say that mind is embodied. So cognition is not independent of the body and the environment and the world in which it happens to be. So embodied cognition is a philosophical thesis and a research paradigm in the area of robotics, which questions the idea that mind is just a computational representational system. And it also rejects the thesis that cognition is a mechanical process of symbol manipulation, which using their physical form according to some formal rules. Now, if human cognition is similar to running appropriate software on a suitable hardware in a computer, then it is like the Descartes' disembodied mind. Now, what do we mean by that? Let's try to understand it. What Descartes argues was that mind was some kind of immaterial substance, and it was logically and ontologically independent of the body. That mind and body were quite separate entities, and they were made up of different kinds of stuff. Another or one implication of this idea of mind-body dualism was that mental processes could occur, or the cognitive processes that we described before, a minute before, could occur in mind, in a non-physical immaterial mind. So for cognition, mind which was disembodied, in principle or logically, was sufficient. Not even that, angels, spirits, ghosts, devils, if it was in principle possible for them to process cognition, if they had, if they could. Now, when we talk about computational representation system, mind is a computational representation system. What we are saying is that the cognition is happening inside the computer. Now, computer does not have to, or the computational processes does not have to be linked with the environment and the body. For example, if it is human brain, then it does not have to link with the body and the environment. What is sufficient for intelligence, as we saw the physical symbol system hypothesis, is that coupled with Church-Turing thesis, that is the computation, the idea of computation as a mathematical, abstract, mechanical process, is that if you can represent information in some physical form using some physical symbols and organize those symbols according to their physical form, according to certain syntax, that is certain formal rules, then the symbol manipulation itself, according to given instructions or the program, is enough for intelligent behavior, the Turing test, to pass the Turing test. So if a computer displays intelligent behavior, it's what simply doing is that all the input that we give it through the keyboard, it processes that information by certain abstract representations. It stores that information in the form of certain physical symbols, most likely in the form of on and off current, and then that which symbolizes 0 and 1, and all the information it processes in the binary code, which is the machine code, and it manipulates simply according to the instructions given again in the binary code, or according to the cycle, fetch execute cycle. So program is just a set of instructions, clear set of instructions, unambiguous, clear set of instructions, what to do next. Take, for example, multiplication. We can use to do multiplication pen and paper, but what is the process? What if you instruct somebody to do a particular multiplication, they might be able to do any kind of multiplication without thought, and that's why computers can do that very fast, any calculation. How does it happen? Now, either you write the number 2 plus 2 into 2, and the multiplication sign and the symbol number 2, and then do it, or you can simply write a program which says that 2 into 2 is nothing but adding 2 twice, or 2 into 4 is nothing but adding 2 twice, and again 2 can be represented in some form of some binary code. Say, if we can call it 001 or 011. So in terms of zeros and 1, I can represent 2, and also I can represent 4 as a string of zeros and 1, which are realized in the computer architecture or the hardware in the form of on and off current, or small integrated, very small integrated circuits printed on the silicon chip, the processor, which is CPU. So ultimately, all this processing that is going on, the symbol manipulation, and the according to the formal rules, is happening inside the CPU. So cognition is happening, and you get the output, a correct output. But is it cognition enough, and is it a correct or appropriate model of human mind? And one moral of this whole thing is that as in Descartes, mind is disembodied by virtue of being a immaterial substance, non-physical substance. The cognitive processes are also abstract. The mathematical, mechanical processes. What we mean by that is that they can be implemented in any kind of architecture. In human beings, we do calculations using pen and paper and small calculation in our mind, or we use calculators as an extension of our mind to do calculations, which is also cognition. But we can implement the same program in or the same program for multiplication, for example, on different architectures. Could be a serial processor, could be distributed processing, PDP, parallel distributed processing, which is of which one example of which are our human brain is also supposed to be a massively parallel distributed processor, or parallel distributed processing simulated on serial architecture, or maybe even quantum computer, or maybe even computer made up of water pipes, where you can knobs where you can turn on and off the water and use it that as a as to realize the program. Obviously, the computer present computers are very fast because they have that kind of architecture, the material that is being used. But despite all this, most of the theorists in the cognitive science, they are mostly materialists. They believe that it is the material, the physical material, that is the best candidate for realizing any cognitive process. So in short, what we want, this whole thesis that uh, cognitive processing or thinking, for example, is symbol manipulation, you know, is called cognitivism, which means that cognitions are happening inside the head. Now, embodied cognition, which is just opposite of disembodied cognition, and cognitivism says that cognition happens inside the, not just inside the head, but cognition requires, or cognitive abilities require, that we take into account our body, the role of our body, as well as its interaction with the environment, dynamic environment. One problem with the cognitivist theory, which the artificial intelligence research uses, the serial processing, is that they have to encode every information regarding about the world in which they want their robot or the computer or anything they want their computer to, any task they want their computer to perform or accomplish. They have to model all the required discourse of the universe or the world, whatever the task it is relevant, the world relevant to that task. They have to model through representation, encode it, and give all the instructions about all the possible situations, in terms of code or program. For instance, if you want to build a robot which can, pick uh, separate books from, say, your notebook, your mobile from your wallet, let's say, then you have to program everything in terms of certain representations. You have to represent all this information inside the computer using some physical symbol system, where a particular string of zeros and ones will represent the mobile and the other will represent the lab wallet, and it has to also, you have to show that the information reaches to it via certain input, maybe or video input through some cameras, and then you have to also precisely tell where you have to uh, program it to know where they locate the coordinates where we reach out for it using some complex algorithms, where the mobile is located and where the wallet is located, or where the mobile is and where the book is, and if you wanted to lift the book and not the mobile, or whether you want to, you know, and you have to, so all the environment in which it is operating, sort of everything, if the moment it enters into the room and accomplishes the task of picking the book or picking the mobile, you have to program everything, and that's a huge computational challenge. Now, the embodied cognition theorists would say that it is the human body along with its sensory motor processes through the interaction with the dynamic environment in which it is situated shapes human cognition. This means that you cannot, the way human beings operate, they use their bodies to feel the things, they use their eyes to see, they use the environment, as a background against which they see things, and they connect things in a network, you know. So the book and the mobile have a different history and different conceptual understanding as far as human beings are concerned. And cognition not just happen in the head. We need to take into account also our evolutionary history. So intelligence is something which is not just a monopoly of human beings. It is coming throughout the history. We have been shaped, our history has been shaped by evolution to become intelligent, accomplish intelligent tasks. And the cognition will also vary from the shape and size, that is morphology of the body. A small kid, a small baby, when it is processing information, the body and its hands and its energy, all these things are taken into account and shape its cognition. And of course, our environment is very dynamic, and we have to cope up with in the real time. And when computer processes all this information, it does not understand its meaning. It does not understand the concept of book or mobile. But when we understand the concept of book, we can differentiate between any kinds of book. We can identify different shapes and sizes of book, of different bindings, hard bind, soft bind, paperback. So we do it because we understand what it means, and we are capable of interacting with the environment in the real time, and there is time pressure. So computers cannot do all the computations. They don't have all the time to do, you know, predict using some kind of Bayesian probability, using Bayesian probability theorem, you know. So they can guess given they can apply probability to, predict accurately, but that will require a lot of time, a lot of computational resource if you have to, if you have to make it work like a human being. So the one approach, which is the extreme approach of embodied cognition, that is called radical embodied cognition, is that we do not need representation at all, to model, you know, to model the world. So how, and it is not that we always model the world in the form of the symbols. Now we have images, we represent the world even in our brain. We store information also in the form of images, and not just, you know, linguistic symbols, or not just language, or symbolic in the form of symbols. And as Rodney Brooks said, that we can use the world as its own best model. That is, we do not need to give all the information regarding the world, encode all the information write it into the program to be used by the processor. Rather, while interacting in the environment, the world can itself, the robot in this case, can actually work out while interacting with the environment. So basically, you need to make a robot which can learn like a human child learns while interacting its environment. It acquires concepts. Now, what is the example in the present? The strongest evidence that is coming from one area is cognitive linguistics or linguistics, and that is our ability to use metaphors. That is conceptual metaphors. That is, when we use metaphors, to use to understand one idea, one concept in one domain. When we are using concepts to of one kind to understand the concepts of another kind, or one idea, when you want to understand one idea using some other idea. For instance, when you try to explain, that is the analogy, using an analogy, you say that we are taught that sun is like a disk. You know. So because we look at it as a disk, so initial uh, idea is that we are taught about sun the way it looks to us. But in conceptual metaphors are more like when we use metaphors in our life. So we use certain concepts metaphorically in terms of some other concepts. So there are two things which you need to keep in mind, that there is a source domain and the target domain. So target domain is the idea which we are trying to understand, and source domain is the conceptual domain or the domain of idea which we are using the to understand the concept domain. So example is that we have the concept of journey. That is, journey is something which happens in the, it's related to physical motion. We move, we journey by train, we can also by walk. So journeys requires physical movement, the idea of physical movement, real bodily movement in the world, in the physical space. And we try to understand the metaphor of journey to understand the life, to talk about life. We say life is a journey. So here, the concepts like journey, which is a more like a which is rooted in our body, the movement of the body, and our movement with respect to time and space, movement with respect to time and space, our body moving with respect to time and space, and it is applied to understand life as a movement. And there are further examples. Now, like purposes are destinations. So we use the idea of destination to understand purpose. We imagine a goal as being at some place ahead of us. So goal is that something we have to reach to it. And we employ strategies for attaining it analogous to those we might use as a journey to a place. We plan, we imagine obstacles and set landmarks to track our progress. In this way, we're thinking about purposes and about time and states and change and many other things besides is rooted in our thinking about space. So here you understand that how it is not just that we are uh, we understanding something like purpose is simply in terms of some computational process. It is linked to our overall experience and so many concepts that we have. So we understand purpose in a conceptual network in which our concept of space is involved, which we feel around it, and our body plays an important role in the concept, our concept of space. So when we use up, down, backward, forward, we are deeply tied to our bodily orientation and our physical movement in the world. So this study is coming from Lakoff and Johnson, who in their books like Metaphors They Live By and The Philosophy of the Flesh, they say that the spatial, every domain which maps onto these spatial concepts, like we think of an upright person, again, upright as being something which is spatial concept. So we think a person, upright person, in terms of our concept of space, the head of an organization. So head is something which is at the top in our body. When we are facing the future, something that it is lies ahead, like it requires spatial movement. It is somewhere in space. The way we move forward to reach you know, some destination. So future is somewhere ahead, and we are facing the future. The way we face the wall, something which is ahead of us, something which is in front of us. So any way we face the physical objects, something physical, we use this employ the metaphor of facing the future to talk about future, And when you say being top on things, we are again using the spatial metaphors. So this is a reasoning where all these concepts are connected and they flow, you know, and they all have origin. All this called metaphorical thinking, you know, which we apply to concepts to understand one concept, you know, in terms of another concept metaphorically. It has its origin and it trains the structure of our bodily coping with space. So that is one example, and it has certain, you know, empirical evidence that how we can trace the use of these conceptual metaphors into our neural circuitry. You know, so when we are using those concepts, there is that the neural circuits are at play. You know, they are get activated, and there are cross or in order information integration, or there are information integration across the different neural circuits. And so many of the concepts that we understand by using metaphors or metaphorically are defined, you know, with respect to the body, and they are embodied in the sense that the idea of the body that we have, you know, that plays a role in metaphorical understanding of those concepts. For instance, the cognitive psychologists have found evidence that when people are thinking about past, they are usually lean backwards. You know, that orientation of the body is backwards, and when they think about future, they are no, they usually lean forward. So it's that all these thinking about all these cognitive processes, you know, about planning, you know, for example, which is the most important of all, decision making, is very much embodied, you know, and it is shaped by our the concepts that, you know, that we use, you know, and those concepts are determined again by the sense of body that we have, and of course our perception of the external world or the environment. So in short, this is I've tried to make it as clear as possible, the concept of embodied cognition. Now there are many aspects to it which we can discuss in detail and via Zoom class, and also, you know, in the text that I have provided, that embodied cognition has further thesis, you know, which is embodiment, situated cognition, you know, and our evolutionary history, you know, and also we talk about extended cognition, we talk about social cognition, you know. So that means all the aspects that are related to human existence in the world, and human beings are defined by Heidegger as being there, or we are being in the world, you know, from where some of the motivation, philosophical motivation for embodied cognition is coming, and it is also traced to the works by Merleau-Ponty, where they talk about body as a schema, or body as, maybe talk about body intentionality, that how our body directly interacts with the world. You know, we don't need to represent the world, but we can sense the world directly through the body, you know, which is another philosophical, you know, grounding for conceptual grounding for the embodied cognition. I hope this, you know, is clear, and if anything is not, please ask questions, you know, and we can also again have a Zoom session